According to Associated Press, Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived in Moscow on Wednesday to pay a state visit to Russia and attend the celebrations marking the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Soviet Union's Great Patriotic War.
While Vladimir Putin has no plans to agree to a ceasefire and is preparing for a parade on May the 9th, there are people in the Kremlin who are very worried. The question remains whether they will have the courage to stand up to the Russian dictator. Political scientist Oleg Lesnoy expressed this opinion to Channel 24, noting that Putin's entourage includes his old friends who support him. It was with these old KGB guys that he went through his entire political path. The political scientist noted that a peculiar struggle between two camps is currently ongoing in the Kremlin. The question is, who will win, the old and experienced or the young and greedy? So the former do not care what happens, but the others want to live a little longer, so they try not to lose contact with the USA. According to Lesnoy, it is interesting here to see who will be stronger and more fearless. The old ones have nothing to lose, so they are angry and cynical. It is also interesting to see who Putin listens to, his old guard or the youth. I think that right now he is leaning towards his reliable old men, because he has come a long way with them, during which they did not knock him off. But the youth are still without teeth and experience, he emphasized. By the way, ISW analysts reported that despite Russia's negotiations with the United States, the Russian dictator will not give up his goals in the war against Ukraine. Among them are the demilitarization of Ukraine, the installation of pro-Russian government in Kiev, forcing Ukraine to refuse to join NATO and other security associations, as well as significant territorial concessions in favor of Russia, including those territories that it does not yet control. Analysts predict that Russia will likely continue to try to achieve these goals through both military and diplomatic means. The occupiers are trying to use their achievements on the battlefield to strengthen their negotiating positions. The head of the Kremlin insists that Russia has sufficient manpower and material resources to bring the war in Ukraine to its logical conclusion, with the result that Russia needs. He also noted that Russia's reconciliation with the Ukrainian part of the united Russian people is inevitable. He repeated his favorite thesis that Ukrainians are only a subset of Russians, not a separate nation. In this way, Putin seeks to justify the invasion of Ukraine and the occupation of its territories. In the open fields southeast of Pokrovsk, Russian forces are desperate to push Ukrainians back and salvage what little is left of their logistics. However, as specialized Ukrainian equipment prevents Russians from even launching their assaults, Russian wrecks and bodies are quickly piling up, leading to another disaster for the Russian army. The goal of the Russian forces is to advance north of their positions in Nadiivka, across open fields to consolidate positions along the Solona River, according to Euromaidan Press. This is because the Russian bridgehead on the western flank of Pokrovsk is too narrow, allowing the Ukrainians to constantly strike their logistics and forcing them to cancel their operational goals. By advancing to the Solona River and expanding their control here, the Russians hope to facilitate a larger crossing and a wider pincer maneuver, hoping this will ease their logistical challenges if they have less of a choke point for Ukrainians to target. The first attempts to expand their control here in the direction of Uspenivka proved to be complete failures, as Russian corpses litter the approaches. So Russians doubled down on their efforts from the south, according to Euromaidan press. Here, Russian supply lines are not as exposed and in a fire pocket as in the western pincer, meaning that Russians can employ armoured vehicles without them being intercepted by Ukrainian drone and artillery fire along the way. To counter this, the Ukrainian forces are employing remote mining techniques to scatter landmines in the fields between them and the Russians. The remote mining is conducted through the use of specialized artillery shells that open up to drop and scatter anti-personnel and anti-tank mines out over a specific area. Euromaidan press says. Additionally, Ukrainians use heavy octocopter drones to carry and lay landmines on roads and choke points to further enhance and replenish the minefields. The Russians heavily rely on the town of Selidov for logistical support, where they station all of their tanks, armoured vehicles, soldiers and ammunition. The Russian front-line positions are connected to it by one asphalt road, leaving it as the only route for their logistical support to deploy their forces. Unfortunately for Russians, this made it the best place for the Ukrainians to scatter their landmines to prevent Russians from launching their assaults. Overall, the Russians changed their operational plans on the western flank of Pokrovsk, forcing them to try and assault the Ukrainian positions further to the southwest, trying to salvage their logistics lines. However, the constant Ukrainian remote mining operations are posing a major obstacle to these offensive plans as well, disrupting Russian assaults, dealing high losses, and often preventing them from launching outright. Euromaidan press says. With whole minefields suddenly appearing on previously cleared roads, Russian efforts here have been stumped, and soon this area will be impassable for Russian armoured vehicles as well.